There are moments in life that arrive so quietly you almost mistake them for ordinary days. The morning looks the same. The sky carries the same colors. The streets wake up in the same familiar rhythm. Yet somewhere, hidden behind a door you have never seen, someone pauses while folding the last few belongings they have carried through an old chapter of their life. They stop for a moment, hold an old photograph in their hands, smile with a mixture of gratitude and sadness, and whisper to themselves that some journeys are not about leaving places behind. They are about finally walking toward the life that has been waiting all along. If this story found you today, perhaps it is because your heart has been searching for hope without even realizing it. Stay with this story for a little longer, because every new beginning first appears as a quiet decision that almost nobody notices. The suitcase resting beside the door is not filled only with clothes or memories. It is filled with courage, unanswered questions, silent prayers, and dreams that refuse to disappear no matter how many seasons passed. Every folded shirt carries a memory. Every carefully wrapped keepsake reminds them of who they used to be before life taught them difficult lessons. Every zipper closing sounds less like an ending and more like the first heartbeat of a future that has not yet revealed itself. Outside the window, the world continues exactly as it always has. Cars pass by. Birds cross the morning sky. Neighbors greet one another without knowing that inside one quiet room, an entire life is changing forever. Sometimes the biggest transformations never announce themselves. They happen softly, patiently, one decision at a time, until suddenly nothing remains the same. The person standing beside that suitcase does not know exactly what tomorrow will bring. They only know that fear no longer deserves to make every decision. For too long they waited for perfect timing. They waited for certainty. They waited for every question to find an answer before taking the first step. But life rarely works that way. Sometimes hope asks us to begin while uncertainty still walks beside us. Sometimes the bravest thing anyone can do is believe that a better chapter exists before they have any proof at all. And perhaps that is why this story matters. Not because it promises impossible answers, but because it reminds every heart that new beginnings often arrive disguised as ordinary mornings. Somewhere far away another life is unfolding at the very same moment. Another person is also standing before a different doorway, wondering whether everything they have endured has quietly been preparing them for something beautiful they cannot yet imagine. Neither of them knows the other. Neither realizes how strangely similar their hopes have become. Yet both have reached the same realization without ever speaking. They are tired of living inside yesterday's fears. They are ready to make room for tomorrow's possibilities. And sometimes that is where every unforgettable story truly begins, not with certainty, not with dramatic miracles, but with two separate lives choosing hope on the very same day, unaware that the road ahead may eventually bring their paths together in ways neither could have predicted, and the strangest part is that neither of them understands why the air feels different today. One of them is standing beside a half-open suitcase, looking around a room that once felt safe but now feels too small for the person they are becoming, while the other is sitting somewhere quietly, feeling a pull in their chest they cannot explain, as if life is gently whispering that something is moving closer even before the eyes can see it. Stay with this moment, because some stories do not begin with loud promises, they begin with a feeling that refuses to leave. The one who is packing pauses again, not because they are unsure, but because every true new beginning asks for one last look at the old life before the door finally closes. They remember the nights when they almost gave up on love, the days when they convinced themselves that maybe peace was all they should ask for, the moments when they smiled in front of people while silently carrying a heart full of questions. They remember how many times they tried to explain their feelings and could not find the right words. They remember how many times they looked at the future and saw only fog. But now something has changed. Not everything is clear, not every wound has disappeared, not every fear has gone silent, yet there is a new strength rising inside them, the kind of strength that does not shout, the kind that simply stands up one morning and says, "I cannot stay where my soul no longer belongs." And maybe that is the real beginning. Not the suitcase, not the journey, not the road, but the decision to stop shrinking inside a life that no longer matches the truth of the heart. Across the distance, the other person feels it too. They do not know why memories are returning so strongly. They do not know why certain signs keep appearing in ordinary places. A song plays at the right time. A name comes to mind without warning. A strange peace enters the room after a long season of confusion. It feels as though life is arranging pieces behind the curtain, gently moving people, moments, and choices into position. And this is where the story becomes deeper, because sometimes two hearts begin changing before they ever meet in the middle. Sometimes one person's courage becomes the silent invitation for another person's healing. Sometimes the road to love is not about chasing someone, but about becoming ready to stand in front of them without fear, without masks, without the old weight of everything that once made love feel impossible. The person packing does not know that every small item they place into that suitcase is also a symbol. The clothes are not just clothes. They are proof that they are willing to step into a different version of life. The notebook is not just paper, it is a witness to thoughts they never shared. The small object they almost leave behind but finally decide to carry is not just a memory, it is a reminder that even painful chapters can become part of a beautiful story when the heart survives them with grace. And as the zipper finally closes, something inside them becomes quiet. Not empty. Not cold. Quiet in the way the sky becomes quiet before sunrise. Quiet in the way a heart becomes quiet when it knows a decision has already been made. They are not running away anymore. They are walking forward. And somewhere, without knowing it, someone else is preparing too. Maybe not with a suitcase. Maybe not with a ticket. Maybe not with a visible plan. But inside, they are clearing space. They are releasing old disappointments. They are forgiving themselves for what they did not understand before. They are learning that love cannot enter fully into a heart that is still locked around yesterday's pain. They are beginning to believe again, slowly, carefully, almost secretly. And that is why this moment matters. Because a new beginning is rarely only one person moving. It is often two lives being prepared at the same time, through different lessons, different losses, different nights of silence, until the distance between them begins to feel less like separation and more like preparation. Do not rush past this part. This is the part where everything invisible is becoming real. This is the part where fear tries one last time to sound wise. It says, What if nothing changes? What if you are wrong? What if hope disappoints you again? But the heart answers differently now. The heart says, what if this time I do not abandon myself? What if this time I choose peace? What if this time the road ahead is not punishment but invitation? And with that quiet answer, the story takes one more step forward. The door opens. The suitcase is lifted. The room behind them holds memories, but no longer holds their future. They stand at the threshold and breathe in deeply, not because they know everything, but because for the first time in a long time, they are willing to find out. And far away, the other heart lifts its eyes as if sensing something it cannot explain. The day still looks ordinary to everyone else, but something has shifted. Something has begun moving. Something that was once delayed is no longer sleeping. The beginning has already started, and even though the road is not fully visible yet, both hearts are closer than they were yesterday. The road outside seems ordinary at first, but to the one carrying that suitcase, every step feels like crossing an invisible line between who they were and who they are finally choosing to become. They do not walk quickly. They do not rush. Something inside them understands that sacred changes should not be hurried. They look back only once, not because they want to return, but because every old chapter deserves one final moment of respect before it becomes memory. And then they turn forward. That is the moment something inside the story begins to glow. Stay with this, because this is not just about someone leaving a place. This is about someone finally leaving behind the version of themselves that kept accepting less than their soul needed. For a long time they believed love had to be confusing to be real. They believed waiting in pain was proof of loyalty. They believed silence meant strength. But on this day, with the handle of that suitcase in their hand and a trembling hope in their chest, they begin to understand that love was never meant to make the heart beg for peace. Love was meant to make the heart feel safe enough to become honest. And somewhere far away, the other person is also changing, though they do not yet have words for it. They wake up with a strange calm around them. The heaviness that followed them for so long feels a little lighter. They do not know why. They only know that something inside them has stopped fighting the future. Maybe it happened during the night. Maybe it happened through a dream they barely remember. Maybe it happened because the soul sometimes receives news before the mind can understand it. But when they look around, the room feels different. Not because anything outside has changed, but because something inside has opened. And this is where the story becomes powerful, because the new beginning is not only coming toward them from the outside. It is rising within them first. The person with the suitcase reaches the street and pauses. The morning air touches their face like a quiet blessing. For a second, fear returns. It asks them if they are sure. It asks them if they know where this road will lead. It reminds them of every time they trusted before and ended up disappointed. But this time fear does not control the answer. This time they breathe and keep moving. Because healing does not mean fear disappears. Healing means fear is no longer the driver. It can sit in the back seat, whispering its old warnings, but it no longer gets to choose the direction. And so they move forward, carrying clothes, memories, courage, and the first real hope they have allowed themselves to feel in a long time. Meanwhile, the other heart feels a quiet pull toward change. They start removing old messages, old doubts, old stories they kept repeating about why love never stayed, why timing never worked, why happiness always seemed to arrive for other people but not for them. They do not announce it. They do not make a dramatic promise. They simply begin making space. A drawer is cleared. A window is opened. A song is allowed to play all the way through without sadness breaking it apart. These small acts may look meaningless to the world, but they are not meaningless. They are invitations. They are signals. They are the soul saying, I am ready for something different now. I am ready to stop living as if the past has the final word. And perhaps this is the secret no one tells you about new beginnings. They do not always arrive as one grand event. Sometimes they arrive as a series of quiet yes. Yes to leaving what no longer fits. Yes to trusting the unknown. Yes to becoming soft again after life made you guarded. Yes to believing that what is meant for the heart does not need to be forced into existence through panic. It can be met through readiness. It can be welcomed through peace. It can unfold one brave step at a time. The one traveling forward does not know that with every mile, they are moving closer not just to a place, but to a version of life where their heart will no longer have to hide. They think they are simply beginning again. They do not realize they are also being guided towards someone whose silence has been preparing to become understanding. Someone whose confusion has been slowly turning into clarity. Someone who has also learned, through pain and patience, that the strongest connections are not always the loudest in the beginning. Sometimes they grow. In hidden places first. In thoughts. In dreams. In strange timing. In the way two separate people begin craving the same kind of peace before they ever know they are walking toward each other. And now the distance feels different. It is still there, but it no longer feels like a wall. It feels like a road. It feels like a bridge being built slowly beneath their feet. Do not skip this moment, because this is where many people give up too early. They look at the unfinished road and think nothing is happening. They look at the silence and think the story has ended. They look at the waiting and think they have been forgotten. But sometimes silence is not rejection. Sometimes silence is the sound of life rearranging what could not be rushed. Sometimes waiting is not punishment. Sometimes it is protection until both hearts are ready to meet without breaking what they are meant to build. The suitcase is placed down for a moment. The traveler looks ahead. The sky has changed color now, and with it, something in their chest changes too. They are beginning to feel that this journey is bigger than one decision. It is bigger than one person. It is bigger than a simple new start. It is the kind of beginning that asks them to trust themselves at a level they have never trusted before. And far away, the other person suddenly feels the urge to write something down, not a message to send, not a confession for anyone to read, but a simple truth they have avoided for too long. They write that they are tired of pretending they do not want love. They are tired of pretending they do not miss the idea of being understood. They are tired of acting like their heart is fine when really it has been waiting for a safe place to land. And when they see those words on the page, something softens. They realize the future is not asking them to chase. It is asking them to become honest. Because honesty is the doorway every real connection must pass through. Without honesty, love becomes performance. With honesty, love becomes home. The day continues moving, but now both lives are carrying the same quiet frequency. One is traveling forward with a suitcase. The other is opening space inside their heart. One is leaving an old room. The other is leaving an old fear. One is stepping into the road. The other is stepping into truth. And even though they cannot see each other yet, the story can see them both. The story knows what they do not know. It knows that some paths look separate only because the meeting point has not arrived yet. It knows that certain beginnings require distance before they can create devotion. It knows that when two people are being prepared for something real, life often teaches them similar lessons in different places, so that when they finally stand before each other, they recognize not just attraction, but depth. Not just excitement, but peace. Not just possibility, but a feeling of finally understanding why nothing else fully worked. The traveler lifts the suitcase again. Their hand is steadier now. The fear is still there, but hope is louder. And that is enough. The other heart closes the notebook and looks toward the window, as if somewhere beyond the glass, an answer has already begun its journey. They do not know when it will arrive. They do not know what form it will take. But for the first time, they are not afraid of wanting more. They are not ashamed of hoping. They are not running from the quiet truth that love, when it is real, does not always crash into life like thunder. Sometimes it approaches like dawn, slowly, gently, patiently, until everything that once felt dark begins to reveal its shape. And this is why the beginning feels so powerful. Because it is not built on desperate chasing. It is built on readiness. It is not built on fear of losing. It is built on courage to receive. It is not built on pretending the past never hurt. It is built on the wisdom gained from surviving it. The road ahead remains unwritten, but both hearts have already made the first move. One packed the suitcase. One opened the heart. And somewhere between movement and surrender, between memory and hope, between the final look back and the first step forward, a new chapter quietly opened its door. A new chapter never announces itself with certainty. It begins with quiet moments that almost seem too ordinary to matter, yet those are often the moments that reshape an entire future. The traveler continues forward with the suitcase in hand, noticing how every step feels lighter than the last, not because the road has become easier, but because they are no longer carrying every version of themselves that was never meant to survive this journey. There was a time when they believed they had to hold on to every disappointment, every unanswered question, every conversation that ended without closure. They believed that letting go meant forgetting, but now they understand something entirely different. Letting go is not forgetting. It is choosing not to let yesterday decide what tomorrow is allowed to become. The breeze grows stronger as the afternoon slowly unfolds, carrying with it the scent of rain somewhere beyond the horizon. Clouds drift across the sky without urgency, as though even nature understands that beautiful things do not need to hurry. The traveler stops beside a quiet bench, placing the suitcase gently on the ground. They close their eyes for only a moment, breathing deeply, allowing silence to settle around them. It is a different kind of silence now. Not the silence that once echoed with loneliness, but the silence that exists before hope speaks. Somewhere else, another life is unfolding with the same invisible rhythm. A window is opened. Fresh air fills a room that has remained unchanged for far too long. Small objects are moved from one shelf to another. Old papers are folded away. A forgotten photograph is placed inside a drawer instead of remaining in plain sight. These are simple actions, almost invisible to anyone watching, yet each one carries quiet meaning. Sometimes the heart begins preparing long before the mind understands why. Sometimes healing starts with nothing more dramatic than making space for something that has not yet arrived. The traveler smiles without realizing it. There is no obvious reason. No message has appeared. No miracle has interrupted the day. Yet somewhere beneath every ordinary thought, a calm certainty has begun replacing restless uncertainty. They no longer feel the need to predict every outcome before taking another step. They simply continue moving, trusting that every road reveals itself one turn at a time. The suitcase beside them no longer feels heavy. It feels symbolic, as though everything packed inside represents not only memories but lessons. Every difficult season taught patience. Every disappointment revealed hidden strength. Every goodbye quietly prepared them to recognize the value of every future hello. Across the distance, the other heart experiences a similar realization. They notice how often they have searched outside themselves for a reassurance that only honesty could provide. For years they waited for life to explain why certain doors closed, why certain people disappeared, why certain dreams dissolved before becoming reality. Today those questions seem less urgent. Not because every answer has appeared, but because peace has begun replacing the need to understand everything immediately. They realize that growth often happens in places where certainty cannot follow. A quiet smile appears on their face as sunlight reaches across the room. For the first time in what feels like forever, tomorrow does not seem intimidating. It feels possible. The traveler rises from the bench and continues along the road, passing strangers who never realize they are witnessing someone becoming entirely new. Most transformations happen this way. They are invisible to the world until enough time has passed for everyone to notice the difference. Courage rarely announces itself. It simply keeps walking after fear expects it to stop. The road curves gently ahead, revealing a landscape neither familiar nor frightening. It is simply unknown, and somehow the unknown no longer feels like an enemy. It feels like an invitation. Every mile carries the quiet promise that life still holds experiences waiting to be discovered, conversations waiting to happen, laughter waiting to be shared, mornings that have not yet been lived. Meanwhile, another heart stands before a mirror, studying a reflection that looks almost identical to yesterday, yet somehow feels different. They recognize kindness returning to their eyes. They notice tension slowly disappearing from their expression. They realize they have spent too much of their life preparing for disappointment and not enough preparing for joy. That thought changes everything. They decide, without making any dramatic announcement, that they will stop expecting every beautiful possibility to disappear before it has the chance to exist. They decide to welcome hope carefully instead of pushing it away out of habit. Outside, the wind continues carrying clouds toward the horizon while sunlight finds its way through every opening. The world itself seems to whisper the same lesson both hearts are learning separately. New beginnings are rarely loud. They are built from ordinary choices repeated with extraordinary courage. A single step becomes a journey. A single decision becomes a new identity. A single moment of honesty becomes the foundation for an entirely different future. Neither of them realizes how closely their lives have begun reflecting one another. While one learns to travel without fear, the other learns to wait without despair. While one releases the weight of old memories, the other releases the fear of creating new ones. Without exchanging a single word, they are slowly becoming the kind of people who can recognize genuine peace when it finally arrives. The afternoon slowly fades toward evening. Golden light stretches across the road ahead, painting everything with warmth that did not exist only hours before. The traveler pauses once more, watching the sky transform one color at a time. It reminds them that even the heavens never rush their most beautiful moments. Sunset arrives gradually, allowing every shade to become part of something greater than itself. Perhaps people are not so different. Every season, every victory, every disappointment, every quiet lesson eventually becomes part of a story that only makes sense when viewed from a greater distance. They lift the suitcase again, not because the destination has finally appeared, but because movement itself has become an act of faith. Somewhere beyond the next horizon waits another ordinary day that may quietly become unforgettable. Somewhere beyond another sunrise waits another conversation capable of changing everything. Somewhere beyond today's uncertainty waits tomorrow's understanding. Neither heart knows exactly how their paths will continue unfolding, but both have already crossed the hardest distance of all, the distance between fear and hope. And once that distance has been crossed, every future step carries a different meaning. The road no longer belongs to hesitation. It belongs to possibility. The story no longer belongs to yesterday. It belongs to everything that has not yet been written, and as the evening sky grows brighter with the colors of a fading sun, both hearts continue forward in different places beneath the same horizon, unaware that every quiet decision they have made is gently guiding them toward a future that begins not with certainty, but with courage, patience, and the willingness to believe that every meaningful journey starts long before two paths finally meet. Night arrives so gently that neither of them notices the exact moment daylight slips away. The traveler continues forward beneath a sky slowly filling with stars, each step carrying less uncertainty than the one before it. There was once a time when darkness made every unanswered question feel heavier, but tonight it feels different. Tonight the silence is no longer empty. It feels alive, as though every quiet moment is carefully preparing the next page of a story that has been unfolding long before either heart understood it. The suitcase rolls softly across the pavement, its sound blending with the distant rhythm of the evening until even the smallest movement begins to feel meaningful. They pause beside a quiet overlook where countless lights shimmer in the distance, each one belonging to someone living a story entirely their own. Looking across that view, they realize something that had escaped them for years. Every window hides unseen hopes. Every home shelters dreams that strangers never witness. Every person carries invisible chapters that cannot be understood from the outside. Suddenly they feel less alone than they ever have before. Their own journey no longer seems isolated. It feels connected to something much greater, a reminder that countless lives are quietly changing at this very moment without anyone announcing it to the world. Somewhere else another heart stands beneath the same night sky, unaware that the same stars are reflecting in someone else's eyes. They step outside for fresh air, wrapping themselves in the calm of the evening, allowing the cool breeze to settle thoughts that once refused to become still. They remember every season when they believed waiting meant being forgotten. They remember convincing themselves that hope was only another path toward disappointment. Yet tonight those old beliefs seem strangely distant, like echoes fading across a valley after the storm has already passed. They understand that patience is not the absence of movement. Sometimes patience is the quiet work happening beneath the surface before life reveals what has been growing all along. The traveler reaches into the suitcase for a small notebook they almost left behind. Its pages contain unfinished reflections, scattered dreams, promises written during difficult nights, and questions that never received immediate answers. They begin reading words written months ago by a version of themselves who could not imagine feeling this peaceful. They smile with quiet gratitude, realizing that the person who wrote those pages believed healing would always remain somewhere beyond reach. If only that earlier version could see them now, standing beneath an open sky with fear no longer holding the map. They close the notebook gently, not because those words have lost meaning, but because they have completed their purpose. Some pages exist only to guide us until we become strong enough to write new ones. Across the distance the other heart quietly rearranges their room one final time before resting. They notice how much lighter the space feels after letting go of things that no longer reflected who they are becoming. The room has not become larger, yet somehow it feels full of possibility. They realize environments often change only after the heart changes first. Peace has a way of transforming ordinary places into reminders that tomorrow still carries promise. They sit near the window watching the moon rise higher, wondering why tonight feels unlike every other evening that came before it. No dramatic event has occurred. No impossible miracle interrupted the day. Yet something invisible has shifted so completely that even silence now feels comforting instead of lonely. That is the mystery of genuine transformation. It often arrives long before the world notices it. The traveler begins walking again, guided not by certainty but by quiet confidence. Every mile teaches the same lesson in a different way. The future cannot be controlled, but it can be welcomed. The unknown cannot always be explained, but it can still become beautiful. Every step taken with honesty creates space for opportunities that fear could never discover. They remember all the moments they delayed their own happiness while waiting for perfect circumstances, perfect timing, perfect certainty. Now they understand perfection was never the invitation. Courage always was. The stars continue multiplying overhead until the sky itself seems filled with silent reminders that light shines most clearly when darkness surrounds it. That thought settles deeply within them. Perhaps difficult seasons were never meant to erase hope. Perhaps they simply revealed how powerful hope becomes when everything else falls away. Meanwhile, the other heart writes a single sentence inside a fresh journal before closing it for the night. They write that tomorrow deserves to be met without carrying yesterday on their shoulders. They read those words twice, feeling something inside finally agree with them completely. It is not merely an inspiring thought anymore. It has become a decision. They no longer wish to build their future using the fears of their past. They choose instead to build it with honesty, patience, kindness, and quiet faith in what has not yet appeared. Somewhere between those separate decisions, something unseen continues moving gently through both stories. Not forcing events. Not rushing timelines. Simply allowing two lives to grow toward the kind of future neither could have embraced before becoming who they are now. Every lesson mattered. Every delay shaped wisdom. Every disappointment quietly removed expectations that would never have brought lasting peace. The traveler eventually reaches a small place to rest for the evening. They place the suitcase beside the door and look at it one more time. It no longer represents leaving something behind. It represents carrying forward only what truly belongs in the life ahead. Everything unnecessary has already been released along the road. Everything essential remains close to the heart. Before turning off the light, they look through the window toward the endless sky one final time. They do not ask for guarantees. They do not demand answers. Instead, they whisper a quiet promise to themselves that whatever tomorrow brings, they will meet it with the same courage that brought them this far. Far away, another light is switched off at almost the exact same moment. Another heart closes weary eyes without realizing how different sleep feels when hope has quietly replaced fear. The night becomes peaceful, not because every mystery has been solved, but because both lives have finally stopped resisting the possibility that beautiful chapters often begin long before anyone realizes they have already started. And while the world continues sleeping, the story keeps moving forward in silence, preparing another sunrise, another unexpected encounter, another ordinary moment destined to become unforgettable, because the strongest beginnings are rarely created in noise. They are created in faithful hearts that continue walking even when they cannot yet see the entire road ahead. Morning finally arrives like a quiet answer to a prayer no one spoke out loud, and the traveler opens their eyes with the strange feeling that the world has not changed completely, yet something inside them has. The suitcase rests near the door, silent now, no longer a symbol of running, no longer a weight from the past, but a witness to courage, to every step taken when fear still tried to speak, to every breath that carried them through the unknown. They stand slowly, looking at the soft light entering the room, and for the first time in a long time, they do not feel rushed by life. They do not feel behind. They do not feel forgotten. They feel present. And that is where the final part of this story truly begins, because every new beginning eventually reaches a moment where the heart must stop asking whether it is worthy of happiness and simply allow itself to receive the peace it has been preparing for. Stay with this last moment, because something beautiful has been waiting inside the silence. Far away, the other heart wakes beneath the same morning sky, carrying the same softness, the same quiet openness, the same feeling that yesterday released something they did not even know they were still holding. They rise, make space for the day, and step outside without fully understanding why the air feels lighter. The world continues as usual, but both hearts are different now. One carries a suitcase. One carries a newly opened hope. One is walking toward a future they cannot yet see. One is finally ready to welcome a future they once feared. And somewhere between them, life begins to close the distance. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Not with impossible promises. But with timing so gentle it almost looks like coincidence. The traveler enters a quiet station where strangers move in every direction, each person carrying a story hidden behind tired eyes and hopeful steps. For a moment, the traveler feels small inside the movement of the world, but then they remember that every meaningful journey begins exactly this way, with one person choosing to keep going even when no one else understands how much courage that step requires. They sit beside the window, the suitcase close to their feet, and watch the morning unfold beyond the glass. Roads pass. Buildings fade. Light spills over everything. With every passing moment, they feel less attached to what was left behind and more connected to what might be waiting ahead. At nearly the same time, the other heart walks into an ordinary place they have visited many times before, yet today it feels different. Maybe it is the way sunlight touches the doorway. Maybe it is the calm inside their chest. Maybe it is because they are no longer looking at life through the shadow of old disappointment. They order something simple, stand near the window, and for a few seconds, they feel as if time slows down. Not because they have found the answer yet, but because they have finally become available to receive it. And this is the truth hidden inside every powerful beginning. Life can bring people close many times, but they only recognize the meaning when their hearts are ready. Before readiness, even blessings can look ordinary. Before healing, even peace can feel unfamiliar. Before honesty, even love can be mistaken for fear. But now both hearts have crossed the hardest road, the road inside themselves. The traveler reaches their destination just as the sky begins to glow brighter, and when they step down with the suitcase in hand, they pause, breathing in the new air. It is not magic. It is not perfect. It is real. And sometimes real is far more beautiful than perfect, because real does not demand that fear disappear before hope begins. Real simply invites the heart to keep walking. The other person turns from the window at the exact moment the door opens somewhere nearby, and though nothing dramatic happens, though no music rises, though no one in the room understands the quiet shift in the air, something in the story recognizes itself. Two separate journeys have entered the same space. Two quiet decisions have reached the same morning. Two people who spent so long learning how to let go are now standing close enough for life to begin the next chapter. They do not know everything yet. They do not understand why the moment feels strangely familiar. They only feel a calm recognition, not the kind that shouts, but the kind that settles gently into the chest and says, "This is why you had to keep going." The traveler adjusts the suitcase handle. The other heart looks up.